Hey y'all, this is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Welcome back home, family. For those of you that happen to be new here, I definitely hope that you hear something that will persuade you to stay on today. With that being said, let's jump straight into today's video. So, some of you whom I don't know if it was some of y'all that were new here or that have been here before, when you guys commented on my last video and was telling me you just need to go ahead and do breakdowns of Joey's podcast 1 and 2 days a week. And thank you for that encouragement, because I listen to his podcast a lot. Like a lot. And I'm not even the type of person that reaches back for certain stuff. I enjoy the dialogue and the different, thoughts that it begins to spark. Something really interesting is going on because, yeah, I'm going to keep it cute. I have the habit of jumping to conclusions. Like, I have a parsonage degree, apparently. So I'm not going to do that. I'm in therapy. I be on FaceTime with my therapist and stuff. So I'm going to relax and not assume the worst and make borderline decisions. So when I was trying to update my payment method, because I, was waiting on a new card for one of my subscriptions, I wasn't able to. And then I'm watching something and a comment was made, and I was like, that's interesting. That's a pattern now. When something you said, done, or posted has been talked about a couple of times, you will catch on. You will catch on, and you will catch on quick. Especially when you know you're being watched by certain people. Especially when you know who you are. Even though the world at large may not know who you are. When you know who you are, and when people behind the scenes who are publicly known figure out who you are, things start to get a little interesting. So with that being said, let's talk about Flip and his contract, since this comes up just about every episode, and it has been very educational, and I appreciate the open dialogue and the transparency. Even though it's just bits and pieces of the talks of negotiation, I love how Joe provides a perspective of him as owner, him as out of the dirt, out of the mud entrepreneur who is funding everything, him as the one whom liability would legally fall on, him whom the decisions live and unalive with. It's also been interesting because Joe said in one of the recent uploads that nobody there knows who gets paid what. But when you begin to look at around the room, you can kind of tell. And it's very important to know that everybody does not deserve to get paid the same thing. It's also important to know your worth and to begin to negotiate. I was watching this psychologist yesterday during the Sabbath, and she was speaking on how lack of negotiation and the workforce is literally rooted in trauma. And it's because we do not see ourselves as worthy and viable in comparison to Eurocentric standards, in comparison to statistical norms, in comparison to what has become popular. So we begin to not ever know our voice, to even lose it. And when it's time for us to get paid, we just take what it is that's given to us, versus realizing that there's a need that needs to be filled. And yes, they could go to another applicant, but they are there in front of you for a reason. Even if you were not their first choice, you were an option on the table, and that can turn out to be the best choice. So I appreciate the open dialogue. So I'm going to go in by saying this. Queenz Flip is Jamaican. So I'ma say from West Indian to West Indian. He was born and raised in his West Indian culture. He goes back to Jamaica regularly. His father's in Jamaica. I am more removed from my West Indian, my Montserratian culture, even though my grandmother, who is the one that's West Indian, she was raised by her mother, whose father was West Indian, the Jameson side of the family. So, Jamaicans and Montserratians are known to be the Black Irish, the ones who came over as indentured servants, some, and as free Negroes and mulattoes when Cornwall forced us, the Sephardic Jews, out of Ireland or Erie during that time. So Jamaican patos is very similar to Montserratian Creole. So I'm saying all that to say there's just a different ethic that Caribbean people move in when it comes to having relationship and dialogue and conversation with one another. When it comes to Flip, there are a lot of instances where, admittedly so, these were his words, where he masks and he deals with insecurity, and it comes off as very verbose and very arrogant, and it's harder to watch because a lot of us didn't know who Flip was specifically before the Joe Budden's podcast. And that's not to diminish him. He clearly has views. He clearly has a following. He has his own network. He has, it's a market for the skits that he does. He clearly is known in New York and in other places where he's good. When it comes to the average viewer, from the comments that I have read when I was able to access Patreon, I haven't used comic since the 90s. I honestly prefer to use herbs when I clean. I love to get a nice vinegar and you just add some herbs to it and some essential oils and those astringents, and you uproot those things through natural aspects. So Flip, when I gained access to who he was and knowledge to who he wasn't on Joe, but fully it was on Joe because I watch battle rap. And so I would notice him standing next to Smack, and it's the guy with the cowboy hat. So I had to go back and I was watching, and I'm like, is that him? Oh, that's the same person. When Flip leads with his numbers, it's the same thing as a man leading with his money and wondering why he just keep on running into hoes that want to use him. Don't lead with your numbers. It is so beautiful when you are vulnerable with the audience and you talk to us, even though I know you're a very private man. It's part of your culture where you're not going to openly, talk about your wife and openly talk about your family. But when you are vulnerable in those moments, when you let your intellect shine through, when you begin to just really speak your mind, those are gold moments. I love when you're funny. It's when you demean your other podcast hosts in comparisons to say niggas was on and popping before this. Case in point, in this episode, Ice pointed it out. By the way, my birthday June 18th, his birthday June 19th. Ice pointed it out. And he called him out for it. And Flip was like, no, I don't do that. He was like, yes, you do that. Ice, it ain't even quiet as kept. Ice left a career. He has a degree in technology. Shout out to the Black Women in Tech room on Facebook. That room is amazing, ladies. If you are not a part of that room, shameless plug. It is not my room. I don't even know the ladies who founded it. join the room. It will talk to you about breaking into the tech industry, about negotiating, about how to create transferable skills, about some certificates that you can be in. If you have a college degree or you have over 5 years of experience in customer service and in billing and in collections and in data entry and certain things of that nature, there is no reason that you should not be making at least $75,000 a year. So ICE left his tech job, which is booming right now. People in tech are high six-figure earners. A lot of tech jobs have a base pay, and the minimum base pay starting off in tech is going to be $60,000 to $75,000. Plus, you get a commission every month. Plus, you get a bonus, quarterly bonus. And some of these jobs have signing bonuses. And some of these jobs have unlimited PTO and stock options and things of that nature. So he left a viable career to pod. And we need to realize that there's more than one way to skin a cat, but as Hebrews, you're not supposed to be doing that because it's unclean. So when Flip consistently talks about who he is and what he does and all of these other things, and the other podcasters have to remind him, we've been doing stuff too. Don't Parks got a Grammy? I know he was nominated, but I think he won. Yeah, I'm almost positive. Mel Ford is Mel Ford. And even outside, I'm not from Jersey, but Ice's brother is Arsenal, who according to some is the most disrespectful battle rapper in URL history. I'm going to put a big old asterisk next to that and not say that he not. To some, I'm going to just say Briz Rothstein. Shout out Briz. Salam, brother. Salam. Salam to Briz and the Nation of Islam. Briz Rothstein and Ill Will, that battle. What up, Ill? Midwest movement. That battle was amazing. Amazing. But shout out to both of them. Definitely a personal shout out to both of them. When you begin to look at the fact that Ish, in my opinion, is the true B-Mike. If we just want to keep it funky, as I said, in my opinion, Ish is a real estate guru. He's the oldest in the room. And Flip, you're the youngest in the room. In Caribbean culture, the way that you handle your older counterparts is out of order. And this is why your uncle and your grandfather, no disrespect, I'm just repeating what you said, pull you to the side and pull your coattails because you're not willing to hear. Because like Jonathan McReynolds, you know, the Chicago singer who is super cold, who featured D1 from New Orleans. Shout out to D1 because he killed it when he came here to Chicago for that live recording that I happened to be at. He has a song called Comparison Kills. And so you're comparing yourself against your coworkers, which begins to move away collaborative efforts that can make the pod even better. And when consistent supporters give back constructive criticism, a lot of times it's met with EAD and SMD, and I just be sitting back like, ooh, that's interesting. Flip, you have grown a whole bunch. I'm going to just tell you, we are sick of hearing about the contract in a complaining way. The work ethic that you have for yourself and Flip the Network, and Joe calls it person, so I don't. It's totally different than the work ethic that you have for the podcast, and we see it. Ice is 100% correct. If this is your day to pod, this is your day to pod because this is your job. And even if you take a half a day, you're not in corporate, you're a contracted person. But from somebody that's in the audience who enjoys the pod, the conversation is just a little repetitive. And some of us would like to see you continue to grow more and to learn from your elders in the room. Frank Lucas, after he said, "This is alpaca, nigga. You don't break that, you blotted." He said that the loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room. And it don't have to be that way. You are only as strong as your weakest person, and you're very strong. You just don't realize that your loudness leaves you susceptible to predatory people who would try, as you said, to come in between a good thing between you and Joe. And although you say you loyal and you won't allow that to happen, Joey has already said that loyalty don't mean nothing to him. Commitment does. I say loyalty to self and commit to your journey. You don't owe nobody nothing but yourself. I just want to let you know, like, we hear you. You have a following. This is Jacolia of Jacolia Jams. Food for thought.